Hello and welcome. I'm Adriana. In order to become a clear channel for the divine, I have worked on my vibration every single day very intensely for the last 8 years. Working on my issues and clearing out my vibration has taken my natural intuition up to a level where I can channel information, energy, and wisdom for those who are on the spiritual path headed in the direction of growth and self-improvement. And more importantly, communion and more connection with the higher self. So today's reading is for an individual. This is to bring more positive insight and positive energy into the world around you. So while I'm shuffling the cards, let's go ahead and align our energies. If you could please bring your awareness into your heart, noticing what's in there. Thank you for having your energy field open to be read. Make sure at this time that you're also very much in your body. Try to be aware of how your feet feel on the floor, or whatever is in contact with the floor, how that feels. Bring your awareness back into your heart, up to the top of your head, and then coming back down to rest in your heart. Okay, so we're going to draw a spread, and I will show you the cards as I talk about them. So in the foundational line, 5 of Pentacles going 6 of Cups. Actually, this might be backwards. The Moon and the 8 of Pentacles going off the other way. This is an interesting one. Okay, what's happening in the relationships, in this person's relationships? Okay, 2 of Pentacles, Princess of Swords, 10 of Wands. Okay, that's good. That's good. I think that looks like that looks like really positive. The first cards are a little watery, I'll say. All right, challenge energy. Okay, challenge energy doesn't want to come out. Do we do one benefit, one challenge? Yep, I think that's the one. So 1 benefit, 2 of Swords, and 1 challenge, Queen of Swords. Okay, all right. That's an interesting message right there. We could do a whole reading just on those 2 cards. And what is the outcome and the final spiritual message? The Hermit. Okay. So I want to say to you, above all, this is really a chance and a time to be going inward and to be trusting your own insights and to be trusting your own discoveries. It's also about looking for the higher meaning in things, the bigger meaning in things, because the synchronicities right now are especially really cool. But there's something about, rather than just going through life as we do one thing after another, it's just about taking time to reflect on what's happening. Are you seeing many of the same things come up? Are you seeing any other patterns, things that you're resolving faster? Noticing any little thing. Even, am I seeing red cars more often? Am I seeing a particular bug or insect or animal? What's really happening? It's about taking time out to make sure that we have that moment of self-reflection. And I think this is very interesting. Virgo is the card often associated with the Hermit, and we are really close to going into Mercury retrograde in Virgo. So this is getting you set for that inward time, because Mercury retrograde is about looking inward. And this is also encouraging you to see yourself as containing, how do I put this? There's part of you that has answers, that has explanation, that has a knowing, an instinctive knowing about what's going on, what's unfolding in your life. It's not the loudest voice in your head. It's not the one that thinks and gets you through most of your day. It's a smaller voice. It's a secret voice, perhaps. You might call it the intuitive voice. But it's there. There's a knowing, I love this wolf, there's a knowing smile on his or her face. And yet it's the hermit that's seeking, and the wolf is like, yeah, I knew all along. It's that kind of thing, that little voice inside of you knows all along, but we need to be still enough and silent enough to, I think I'm going to go backwards with this spread. I usually go up from the bottom, but I'm actually going to come back down into the foundation. It's this little voice that knows enough. And so let's go straight here. This was the beneficial energy. This was the challenge energy. And they're both sword cards. Two of Swords, Queen of Swords. And with the Two of Swords, this was the benefit, is saying very much what I'm saying about the Hermit. Look inside. She has a blindfold on. But the difference here between her blindfold and the Queen of Swords looking inside, because you see she's got her eyes closed, is that there's a vulnerability in this Two of Swords. You can see that in her nakedness, right? She's in front of these two paths and she's there. There's nothing to hide behind. So it's being really honest and vulnerable with yourself, really truthful with yourself. And not either talking yourself out of it, rationalizing yourself out of it, or ignoring it. This is the louder voice. This is the voice of the ego, the personality that says, no, we can ignore this for now. That's not what it really is. And you can see she's really intent on protecting herself through isolation. Alone on her mountaintop, and she's got that big sword. This one is holding the swords, but you don't really feel so much a protective gesture as it's more of a soothing gesture. Actually, if you're like this, you can't really easily swing into battle. So this is definitely not a protective, self-protective gesture. It's more just like saying, I'm not sure which way I'm going right now. It's saying pause in the moment because I need to go somewhere else. I need to go on the inside. So it's about getting honest and vulnerable with yourself. And in this time of Mercury retrograde that we're coming up to, if you ignore what has been going on or what isn't sitting right with you inside, if you ignore that, then there are going to be situations that are going to kind of blow up in your face because it's trying to get you, your guides are trying to get you to come to this place of realization. So you can circumvent some of that kind of explosion by just going inside, looking for those vulnerable truths and being vulnerable with yourself. All right, now what is happening now actually we're going to go down into the foundational cards. We've got Five of Pentacles, Six of Cups, the Moon, and the Eight of Pentacles on the other side. There's a lot of energy about the past in this particular spread. All three cards, these are my symbols for the past. Six of Cups, the Moon, and Eight of Pentacles, especially these together. This looks like past karma to me, a past life. Okay. And I have to say that it looks like what has been unfolding from the past lives is indeed affecting your present. It's making you feel more disconnected from the energy around you, from the world around you. It's also making you identify with personality traits that you don't seem to have anymore. The getting frustrated, you may find yourself getting frustrated more easily. Patience wearing thin, whereas usually you're very patient, or whatever's making you triggered or making you want to explode, usually that doesn't happen to you. So it's like the energy from a past life is actually infiltrating a little bit, like your soul is spending too much time focused on it, and it brings it back into you a little bit more. And that sounds kind of weird because you're like, well, I'm not actively focusing on a past life, but that's where these things are coming from. And because of the over-identification with the past, you're unable to see how to move forward. And that's why this inner reflection on who am I, what am I really feeling underneath everything, what's really going on, that deep vulnerability where you lay yourself open to be weak. And what I think, I was really captivated by her body language of the two swords this way. I mean, if you think about, if you're holding two swords and someone comes up to you, you're at a complete disadvantage because they can disarm you in one thing. And that's the point. It's not about putting up the blocks. Because of the way you're feeling, the Five of Pentacles is going to want to encourage you to defend yourself. But this is actually the opposite. Let's go into what I'm feeling, because the reason why the past life is coming back, why your soul is reaching into that memory to make your current experience even more strong, is that it's just that. This is energy from a past life that you want to resolve in this life. And it's part, this is a little complicated to explain. It's part of your own specific DNA in your body in this lifetime, but it's something that you also had in common with other lifetimes that you carried through. And in order to help you resolve this faster, your soul is reaching back into those lifetimes, pulling that same personality trait or that same energy so it feels magnified. It's almost like looking at mirror. Have you ever seen one of those rooms where you have like multiple mirrors set up? How am I doing this? Something like that. Where you have multiple images of yourself and they go all around you, but there's really only one real you, but you've got all those images, right? So that's what this is about. You've got the real you that's here now, but all these echoes from your past lives that shared this same issue that you're working on, they're all echoing to bring together. And a lot of this has to do with resolving issues from childhood, issues with your mother, issues of how you relate to your mother and how you define yourself because of your mother. And again, these are patterns that were set up even before this lifetime. And it's not necessarily that you were with your same mother in a previous lifetime, but it's that the particular setup you have now really is helping you to overcome these issues. And okay, it's right in front of me. I was going to say next, can you clarify? But apparently we already drew the cards. So this is what's going on in relationships. Two of Pentacles, Princess of Swords, and the Ten of Wands. So this has to do with taking on more than actually is yours, taking responsibility. It could have to do with that very specific codependence where you are finding yourself feeling responsible for everyone else's happiness or feeling responsible for fixing everyone else's problems. And it's also working harder than you have to and silently suffering. There's a lot of silent suffering energy coming through right now. And what I think is really encouraging is that you're starting to see, you're starting to be able to delineate when is this happening? Oh, look, I'm giving too much here. Or look, I've overextended. Or wait, is this really my problem? Do I really need to be picking up this bag of dog? You know what I'm saying? You're starting to see which one it is, but Two of Pentacles, you're still not completely able to cut off this behavior 100% of the time. You still find yourself going back and forth between those two. And some of it is because there's a perceived status with having this, especially suffering in silence. That's like a perceived status. It makes you like, if it comes from a place of low self-esteem, it gives you a reason to feel better about yourself, martyrdom, or taking too many for the team, gives you a reason to feel better. And so this journey right now is about going into that Two of Swords with the Hermit. Why do I really do that? Why do I really want to, I'm going to say it this way, control other people at my expense? Why do I really want to do that? What is the vulnerable reason? Where am I where was that fundamental place my needs didn't get met? And what's at the bottom of a lot of all of this is lack of love, lack of feeling loved for who we are, for this strange, weird, quirky, not like anyone else person that we are. And it's very likely that your mother did not give you enough reinforcement that who you were was okay. Leaves you feeling who I am is not enough. And I also want to say something about the Queen of Swords. You've managed to give yourself a really steely exterior or steely way of doing this. There are not too many people that you would admit this to. You would not admit that softness, admit that the neglect or the sadness or the feeling small. That's not how you appear in the world. But what if you were to take all of that off? Where would that lead you? Would you be okay with that? That's what the Hermit is asking you to do, because it's like looking at a crab or looking at some kind of shellfish. The animal itself is very soft and gooey and vulnerable. That's why it has to put that hard shell around it. But the shell is not part of the actual being. And it's funny, hermit crabs, so our hermit crabs often outgrow their shells. And this is totally off the subject, but I love this about hermit crabs. In the ocean, they'll actually line up. They'll line up according to size. If there's someone like starting to shed their shells and there are others that need to do the same, somehow they find each other and they all line up in a row and they all kind of swap shells. And I really love that, because there's something about that process that your higher self is asking you to do right now. The shell, the home you're keeping yourself in is so small because of these past life patterns. And it's time for you to move into that bigger shell. But first, you have to be willing to come out of any kind of protective coating, any kind of protective armor, and be that gooey, naked, vulnerable person with yourself. That's the really big thing here. This isn't about like crying everywhere and accosting every stranger with your life story. This is about getting vulnerable with yourself, getting honest with yourself. That is the metaphor of stepping out of that hermit crab shell, is to get vulnerable with yourself so that you know what size home to look for next, so that you know what size community or body or, again, metaphorical home you're looking for. All right, there's another message coming through. Ace of Wands, Two of Wands. This is going to be the Three of Wands. Princess of Pentacles looking at the Two of Wands going into the Ace. So you are planning, or is it you consciously or is it your higher self? Well, it's your higher self through your consciously planning on a new beginning. You're consciously planning on a new life once you find what this new shell is, once you find what this new home is. And you're headed in that direction. You're already headed in that direction. So if you were feeling discouraged by anything I was saying, like, oh, I'm going back and forth, yes, at the moment you are, but there's a bigger plan in motion for you. I do feel that with all of these. And you're headed for that divine rebirth of yourself, of your new self coming down, different parts of you coming alive. And I'm getting the words new dialogues. And so I feel like this is new dialogues with the self, new things that you're telling yourself, which is why it's so important to get to that place of vulnerability with yourself. And so new dialogues, and that in turn is going to create new dialogues with those around you. What you have, the invitation that you have in front of you, is a profound level of self-acceptance that you have not experienced to date. So yes, you have been working on it and uncovering pieces and putting it all together, but what is in front of you, this opportunity here, is the deepest level of being at home in your own skin, and really fully saying, this is who I was, this is who I am, this is who I'm becoming, here's where I'm going. There's just a different feeling, a different confidence that I'm getting that you will possess. There's going to be less need to prove yourself or less need to explain yourself, because you're going to have this deep inner confidence. And what I love also about this card here is there's a little moon. Even though the sun is bursting, there's a moon in the sky. So it's like the moon hasn't gone away completely. It's still part of you. And it's really important that our shadows that we accept them as part of us, because they do define our light. Our shadows define our light. But in this new self, you haven't completely said, okay, well, I'm tearing that shadow out from me. It's no, I have integrated it into who I am, and yet I'm letting my light shine much, much, much brighter. I mean, if I were just to show you this card, you probably wouldn't even see the moon unless I pointed it out to you. And so this new dialogue that's going to happen is a new way of defining yourself, a new way of naming yourself, of saying, this is who I am. And that's really what the Hermit is on a journey for. Who am I? What am I learning? What can I teach myself? But the Hermit has to go alone. I feel like this wolf here represents the instinctive self or the intuitive self, but he and the wolf are one, and he's wandering these lands alone. And in order to solve a problem, or in order to get to the next level, we have to start with honesty. So, I often use my past piano teaching studio as my my fodder for examples, but there's so many relevant ones. When a student wouldn't practice and they would come in, especially if it's a kid, I can always tell when they're faking that they've practiced. And so rather than go along with their charade that they're pretending to have practiced, and I can tell they haven't because of the way the piece sounds and the way it's flowing and the types of mistakes they're making, it would be so much better, the lessons would go so much better if I would say, it doesn't sound like you had a lot of time to practice. It's like all of a sudden they would just relax. Be like, oh, thank God I don't have to hold up this mask anymore. I don't have to keep trying to fool her. And I'd say, okay, you didn't have time to practice. And we would talk about, what happened in that week. And if it was something that they couldn't control, we would be like, okay, well, let's move on and figure out how to make your practice better next week. And if it was something they could control, we would talk about that. But being honest gave us a framework. It gave us a jumping off point for us to move on to the next step. But, even more than the practical advice or the practical unfolding of that, they felt they could trust me. They felt that they could be honest and vulnerable with me. And that was really important for their progress and growth as well. Because if you can't be honest and vulnerable when you're playing an instrument, if you can't have an open heart, you can't make music. And also, the whole point of bonding with an adult and knowing that you can be imperfect and still be accepted and loved, that's important too. There's all of that going into your relationship with yourself. You don't have to hide from yourself. You can't hide from yourself, really. You're watching yourself all the time. But there are parts of you that have been trying to hide from yourself. And this is about saying, you know what? It's okay. Come out. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. Just come out and talk to me. Tell me what's going on. And then let's see where we can move from there. And you're going to be really surprised at how quickly you feel at peace and how quickly you feel relief for having come clean with yourself. There is one last message coming out for you. You come back into your power. I love this for you because look, this is the child and this is the adult. This is the creative mother. This is the child. So you come back into your own power. You literally learn to nurture and rebirth your own power. And so going to this scary place turns you into this. So look at the difference in these cards. Here she is in this dark place, no way out. She doesn't really know where these paths are going to lead. And she's naked and the red robe is behind her. Well, here she's taken up the robe. She's not sitting in the middle of the nameless woods. She's sitting on a very specific throne holding a magic wand so that she can create her own destiny, her own magic. She can literally weave her own magic. That's where you're headed. The ability to weave your own magic. All right, I'm going to close the reading at this time. Thank you so much for opening up your field to being read. Thank you to our guides and our higher selves for bringing through the wisdom to help us at this time. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.